My name is Manoj. I'm a recovering addict. So I'll share a little story with you guys, today. I think I'll start with a short story just so that I'm able to kind of not only say my bit but also be able to share something that is very common with addicts. So like any person, I started, I come from a good family. I'm the youngest son, so I got all the extra things that I wanted in life, with of course extra love and but I always thought I had edge over most normal situations. So if you put me in a situation and you put my brothers in the same situation, I would react differently to a situation than how my brothers will react in a situation. So somehow I had this feeling that I don't know, there was something going on, like a race, and I remember, as long as I could remember, I was a child with a lot of attention seeking problems and issues, and I was a problem child from childhood, and I know that about me. I always say this, I'm a very expressive child when I was in school, so I had my own demands in school, and my family somehow had to kind of constantly moving me from one school to another school because no schools could handle me, I was not a bad guy. I was not a bad child. I was just a very expressive child. So moving from there, and so this entire process of attention seeking was in such a form that I really needed to escape this situation, something about this mundane life, about people. I remember as a child, I used to go to school. I remember me and my brothers and all of them sitting in a bus stop. It would depress me to see the whole world is going somewhere, and I'm like, kahan ja rahe hain? Where are they going? What is happening? And why do we have to go to work? Why do we have to carry this tiffin box? And sitting there and realizing, is this what life is all about, was a big question mark for me. I never wanted to be a person who's carrying his tiffin box and going and taking a bus and going to this world that I don't know why I belong, And I remember, if I very clearly state, I always thought I never belonged here. This was not a place for me. And I always had this issue of understanding other people, Teacher is teaching me something. I'm thinking, why is she telling me about something that I don't need to know? Nowhere in my lifetime I'm going to know what Shivaji did in Maharashtra. I don't need to know that information. If I need to know, I'll go to the library and read. Somewhere I had this problem with identifying with people, from whether it was school, whether it was my family, my brothers, my parents. My parents, they were lovely people, but they failed to express themselves very well with me, and somehow I felt this pressure of authoritative thing. So that's why I always have this issue from childhood with authority, So anyway, having said that, and because of all these misproportions of how I felt and how everyone reacted to me, I decided, I think it was a very extreme decision I took in my life, I thought the only way to live life was like a hippie, just do what you think, and just do it at a flash of a decision. So I made a decision when I was in 8th when I was in 8th standard, I made a decision that, this is boring and I can't study anymore. And I decided, I spoke to some of my friends in school. We were all in school. We decided that let's run away from home, So that was my first ever attempt to escape life on life's terms, So we chose to run away, and somehow I was able to influence these kids in school. Like when I say kids, even I'm a kid then. So we ran away from home, and we went to the bus stop. And this situation I still remember, and I can, we were just standing at a bus stop, and we saw all these different types of boards in the bus stop which says Hyderabad, Mumbai, and then there is like Gujarat, and different buses are going everywhere. And then we saw Goa. We said, hey, we didn't even know that Goa had a different language, People speak different language in different states. We didn't even know that. We thought everywhere they spoke English and whatever, Kannada and Tamil, I didn't even know that a different language existed. But anyway, we took that bus and we landed up like any other person. It was a very extreme decision. And so that's how I would say my attention to detailing went into getting into, drugs and alcohol. That's how my life's purpose of, moving there, running away and testing and trialing. That's how I figured there was drugs. I never thought that drugs were ever a problem. I always thought, hey, I can start and stop like that, And that's what I did in Goa. I did a lot of drugs at a very young age, and I started smoking. In no time, I started smoking, I started drinking, and started to learn the worldly things, how to manipulate, how to talk to people, how to convince other people, how to influence people, all these things I quickly learned, and somehow this other part of me, which was struggling with loneliness, fear, insecurity, not balanced, and not belonging, suddenly disappeared, and that was such a relief, Suddenly I felt, hey, this was the actual only purpose in life that I was born for, and that started to eliminate itself, and then all these worries, this isolation and all these things just moved away, and I figured that this is a perfect life, sandy beach and, smokes and friends, and all of that, I thought was life, and that's how I think my way of connecting with world was that, so that's how my entire journey started. And from there, of course I came back home after some 30 days of exploring this option. I had to make that call to end that story. I had to make the call to home, and I made that call, and my brother came and picked me up. Of course, no questions asked, because they were scared that I'll run away again, so they didn't ask me any questions. That was nice, but that's how my journey started, and then I came back. For a long time I didn't use, because the attention that I got off just that part that I ran away, the whole school was a fan, The whole school will look at me and say, oh man, that's the guy, So I lived in that attention for a long time, and then again, slowly alcohol started, and I started smoking, drugs. When I say drugs, there were soft drugs, and then, then I got into other alternative drugs. So that's how my pattern of using started. It started with just attention, and then curiosity, and then curiosity became an action, and then the action became a habit, and the habit literally ruined every little thing I loved in my life. And I always thought that I am way too smart and I know how to handle drugs. I know how to handle these situations. I thought I'm way too smarter than anyone in this world, but I was wrong. Drugs are very, very heavy, and they are much, much, much powerful than what I thought. And instead of me addressing some of those issues, emotional, mental challenges that I was facing as a child, instead of addressing them, I amplified them. A wild bull needs to be tamed, it needs to be tamed. It's just running mad, and whoever comes, whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't know the difference between right or wrong. It's just running, and it's so powerful, right? So that's how I always see the drugs as the wild bull. So I took help. My parents were very, very supportive of when I told my mother worked for the government. So when I told my mother, hey, you know what, I need help, I think I have a bit of a problem with drugs, she came right in front and she said, hey, you know what, we're going to support you. So tell me what you want to do. Then I said, hey, I think I want to go do a short treatment process. So I did go to a treatment center and learned to deal with some of these urges and coping skills that I got